Hello and welcome to the Stateside Soccer Show. My name is Jordan. With me, as always, is Logan. How are you today, Logan?
I am doing well. Jordan, I woke up. I'm now 31 years old. I'm old, I know. And you and I
Well,
had this
yeah.
conversation earlier today. Yeah, Jordan, I woke up today and like you people will understand it once you hit your 30s. I woke up and like the middle of my back just is killing me. So I
Yeah.
just got back pain as an old man. It's awful. I don't know how you
Sucks,
do it.
doesn't it?
Yeah, I know. Jordan's like
Oh, no, I
ancient
take it
compared to
one
me.
day at a time. Uh, it sucks, too, because so my dog River has been barking a lot at 3 or 6 a.m. Usually at
Oh,
3, sometimes at 6. And she wants to go
solid.
downstairs, right? So before, I used to wake up and be like, all right, I guess she needs to go out. And then she'd fight me to go out. So what she really wants to do is just sit downstairs. So I'll just end up having to sleep on the couch most nights right now. Now lately she's been good and has been sleeping in, like staying in our bedroom, no issues. But there's some nights. I think it's like nights where we didn't get enough energy out that she'll wake up around that time and want to she's like really hyper. But then she'll sleep on the couch, no problem when I go down there. So in order to get more sleep, and instead of just going downstairs and then like trying to force her to come back up and then her jump off the bed again and start scratching at the door again, I just said, I'm just going to sleep downstairs. And it's saved me tons of hours of sleep. So thank God for that. But the couch has actually been pretty comfortable too. So we did get a new bed though too a few months ago, and that's been a lot better. The mattress. So we've had a little easier time with that on our backs and all that. So you're on mute, Logan.
That's what happens when you've done too many of these episodes lately. You just start talking to yourself. Yeah, no, I think it's time, Jordan, to get. If anybody wants to sponsor us out there, Mattress Firm, like we got you. We got you.
That's
Or
not where
Sleep
we got
Number.
ours from. So
It's true.
I got
Uh,
ours from Wayfair. So Wayfair, if you want
hey,
to,
Wayfair is a great spot.
it's got
That's
just
a
what I
really.
need. All right,
It
let's.
does.
Today we are previewing the top four of the Western Conference. So you would think that means a shorter episode. So we'll see, because lately we've been doing 5 teams. Um, we'll see how that goes. But yes, so we are starting with the top four, and of course, we also are having our guest. So we're gonna go to our guest first. I feel like I like this better right now. Going to the guest first. It's been an easier job editing too. We're gonna go to the guest first, and then we're gonna come back and talk Houston, LAFC, Seattle, and of course our guests are featuring St. Louis guests. So who do we have, Logan, joining us to talk St. Louis?
Yeah, so we have our friends over from Ball Watching on, and when we had these guys on last year, we had them on twice, Jordan, after their hot start. Their official name is Ball Watching, a St. Louis City SC podcast. I like how Weeby on Extra Time always goes City SC because it's in capital letters. I think all of them, SC and FC, are always in capital letters, but City is capitalized in their branding. So I love when he goes City, like it's the official city of the United States in MLS soccer. So
It is soccer capital of the world. So
it is, yes. I
or
think
of
we've
the
said that
states,
about
not the
many,
world.
yeah,
Sorry,
we've said that about
that's a
many
bold
cities.
claim. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so we're having the ball watching guys on, and I'm excited to see what they think, Jordan. We haven't caught up with them since last season when they had that hot start, so really excited to talk to them about the club.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and welcome our guests. All right, and we are back from our break, and we are welcoming in Jake from Ball Watching, which covers St. Louis City SC. Welcome back to the show, Jake. How are you?
I'm good. I'm geared up, and I'm ready and excited for hopefully a decent sophomore season here. But yeah, the excitement's building here. We have our first game on the 20th, and then we have Champions Cup, which is not something I would have told you we'd have been featuring in last year. So I'm very excited.
Go ahead,
Yeah, it
Logan.
wasn't really in the question. Yeah, it wasn't really in the questions, but like, how's the city taking that? Is it Is it a lot of learning? I mean, are you figuring from the fan base that it's like, what are we doing now?
I'd say it's a good bit of both types of fans. When I say there are definitely some new fans that are, have a Rams size hole in their heart, and others that have, a European kind of affection for the love of the game over there, and they're just so happy to have a team and want to learn more about the game. We get lots of great questions, and have to challenge ourselves sometimes as well. But definitely do our part in educating. But there's another, I'd say, just very, very well-known part of the fan base that they came up in this culture. Soccer is massive here in St. Louis. It's all the talk. In high school sports, it was always the big thing to watch. So there's also that contingent as well who know the game so well, and you can tell by their takes on social media and such. But a good mix of your very, very casual fans that are just now kind of coming up in it, and your very, very experienced fans.
I feel like that's always the thing, like when I'm explaining soccer to non-soccer watchers, right? Is like when I go to Philly games a lot, and like Open Cup games are not as attended as well. Champions Leagues are not as attended as well because people are like, it's not the league, right? Like it's whatever. And like trying to explain to my grandparents or something like, oh, is this like they're going for the cup? I'm like, well, this is actually a different competition, like trying to explain this to people when you're introducing them to the sport of soccer. And I think it's one thing that I really like the most about this sport is all the competitions, right? You can win a different competition. Like when I look at my Orioles at the end of the Major League Baseball season, it's like, all right, did we win anything? No, not really. But here, like you can win a supporter shield, you can win a cup, you can win, whatever. And I kind of, one of the best things about it is there's multiple markers of success, I think, in soccer. Also a short, this is kind of the first time St. Louis is dealing with the short off season, right? You guys had like 2 years to prepare for this, but now you're getting into the season ended 2 months ago. Is there kind of like a surprise with that for any fans, you think?
I would say a little bit for us. Like I said, there's a contingent of fans that is very, very passionate and have very, very high expectations for this team.
Mm-hmm.
And that really came to light last year, as we got closer to the number 1 seed and locking that up. People are saying that, now we're a, conference finals or bust type team. And I definitely think there was some coming back down to earth that we all had to kind of do inwards and just kind of reflect on the season and how I think we'd outperformed a lot of expectations. But I think we had also just outperformed in general on a lot of different categories. So I think for us, it's just a matter of being more realistic, because I think last season definitely got that humbling at the very end there in the MLS Cup playoffs against bitter rival now. But I think it could have been a good thing ultimately for us to kind of come back down to earth and really hit the ground running this year, because we know how awful second years can be towards expansion teams.
Yeah, so how's the club dealing with this? I mean, they're playing with a familiar club in Houston Dynamo. Houston had a great season last year, especially towards the tail end. I would say kind of have that opposite effect that St. Louis had in the tail end of the year. But just there's a lot of comfort level there. Does St. Louis feel like, this is a competition that we should be going out and competing in? Because I know, there's been a lot of success with teams that have focused their sole attention on the actual tournament itself. But then there's the competition where, people are like a Philadelphia Union that focus so much on that, where the season is kind of lackluster to start with. But how is St. Louis kind of preparing for the Dynamo game?
From what I can tell, just by gauging 1 year, right? Just 1 year of sample history here for us. But last year, when I look at the cup competitions, obviously that being just Leagues Cup and US Open Cup last year, for us, we definitely, I think, tended to rotate pretty heavily. And I don't know if that is just a desire to get more minutes to fresher legs, younger players, which we definitely did our part in, or if that is a signal of what's to come with this team. I personally, my goal that we are setting for the season for us just a couple days ago now was in those types of competitions, I would love to advance, maybe into a quarterfinal or something in one of them. So I don't think we all of a sudden go all in on these cup competitions. I do think the MLS will be probably our biggest priority, just gauging how last season went. But I do think it'd be a disservice to not really, really kind of take a swing at one of these competitions and see if you can pull something off. So we'll see. I think the answer is still out there, honestly, on this. But I could see us kind of going pretty heavy with the first team into this first clash at home against Houston.
Great. Hopefully you can hear me well right now. It'll sound a lot better post because I'm recording everything locally. But okay, so with the CONCACAF Champions League, but kind of before we move into anything else, does part of you get bummed that like you're drawn up against an MLS team and you're like, darn, we didn't get like the spicy like tie with a Liga MX team or something?
Yeah, I would say that I would definitely have preferred to get more of a unique matchup. But all that considered, it's not awful travel, which is always a positive to even start the season on. And Houston, as good as they were last year, and they were great, we have their number. Just in obviously the short sample size that we have here with our fixtures last year. So I don't think it's awful. I think the awful thing for me is that the winner goes on to Columbus, which is just quite a gauntlet to go to the U.S. Open Cup champion and then on to the MLS Cup champion if you're so fortunate to win. So I think we're feeling positive. I wouldn't err on the side personally as saying that I think I'm optimistic about it. I think that's something that Houston probably brings a stronger 11 to personally, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I think I think it's interesting because you face a Houston team that's going to come in a little bit limping out of the preseason just because Hector Herrera is hurt. Quinones that's a big injury. I mean, their attacking front is wounded. So I think St. Louis coming into it can feel good. And like you said, there's so much to put into the travel aspect of these competitions. You've seen, especially, I think you really saw it in the Leagues Cup, just how beat and battered the Mexican sides were that came in, had to travel all those distance to go to the East Coast of the United States and then back over the West Coast sometimes. So it caused some issues. And I think you see the similar thing. And you might even see it starting tomorrow when Mexican sides are traveling to Vancouver and you're seeing teams play each other in different atmospheres on different pitches. And I think you got a good draw on your first one, even though it's not entertaining, because you know the surrounding area, you know the atmosphere, you know what kind of pitch you're playing on. Some of these teams, I mean, I remember when the Union played and there was dogs running on the field.
No, you're right. It's a good point to make, and you cannot play down the significance of a player like Hector Herrera either. And yeah. Just one of the games last year, he didn't start. I want to say he maybe missed the first half, maybe 60 minutes. Then he came on, and the game was just different when he hits the pitch. It was incredible to watch his impact on a game. So we're definitely a little fortunate heading into that first leg.
And talking about atmospheres, and we talked about this last season, and I'm a proponent of St. Louis has probably the best atmosphere in MLS. It goes up against a bunch of different atmospheres. And I think they're ultimately probably the most passionate fan base. Can you talk a little bit about the home field advantage, what that's like being at City Park and just what that does for the club?
Yeah, I can. And I think I want to approach it from kind of two dimensions. I think the first one being quantitative here. I mean, the team at home last year was one of the top home teams in the MLS, and doesn't surprise me a whole lot, but yeah, our points per match, most statistics, our goal output was always stronger at home. And man, we had some great initial home games to really kind of get the fuel in the fan base. And that 5-0 start was just incredible. And our first home opener against Charlotte was almost a step better. And I was at the game in Austin for their first ever game. But atmospheres quantitatively definitely make a big difference for us. We're a much stronger home team. And then I look at the qualitative side. So the people, the experience, what they've done, this club here with the stadium is everyone's going to tell you it's state of the art. It's the best that you've ever seen. And, I'll skip that part for you all. And I'll just say that they've really invested a lot into kind of what I would call like more holistic experience. The food at the stadium is all local food vendors. It's really expensive to do that, but they made the choice to do it anyway. Has these cool technology markets. You walk in and you don't have to scan anything at all. It's all linked to your biometrics or your eyes, and it checks you out. So they have all the off the field things going, I think, really well. They have a great pregame kind of entertainment segment they do with lights, and they have awesome national anthem singers. They have, all the celebrities from St. Louis, which there are quite a few, come to the games and bang the drum with the hooligans. It's incredible what they do there. And it's paid off, obviously, I'd say in full for them, and I expect it to be potentially even rowdier heading into this season. I haven't seen every MLS stadium and a home game there, but I would definitely put us up against some of the best. It's electric to be at City Park.
Yeah, Liverpool fans can close their ears. I think it's kind of like the Anfield of the MLS, just because the way it sits and just it has a dark feeling, but also like it's rowdy and it's rambunctious. And I think the fans, like the fact that you guys stood what was the whole match that first, it's insane. Like it just, that doesn't happen anywhere else. And my support and my loyalty lies here in Orlando, because I'm in Orlando. And I'll be frank, like by I would say May, they've lost complete interest. Like half the seats are empty. Like there's just not a huge following. And then the playoffs are so embarrassing. Like I will say, for an Orlando City fan, if you want to invade, you could invade. Like it's just like that. I mean, Atlanta fans come down here and they make it their home. So I'm jealous, Jake, of everything that St. Louis has going for them. And can you kind of speak to, like, kind of transitioning, like what was the reaction after last year? I mean, you guys start out with 15 out of 15. Teams don't even do that in the regular season. Like they don't even go on those kind of runs through a regular season, let alone to begin the season in your first season. Like, can you just kind of talk about how it went from highs to highs, and then maybe the lowest of lows, and then kind of, in between when you get into the playoffs?
Yeah, no, I can. It was definitely a story of a season for us. And you mentioned the very beginning. I mean, coming in as an expansion team, like I said, a lot of new fans, a lot of people that just didn't know how serious this team would be out of the blocks, and talking about styles of play and how Bradley Carnell has this very, very specific way of playing, and it's hard to adjust to for some opponents. I think we all just came in, open-minded and eager-eyed, and just wanting to see what this looks like. And we were blown away at how hot this team started. I don't imagine anyone was, saying that this is the level we would hit right out of the gates. And obviously we saw that flutter up and down, but I will say at that very beginning, even the first 5 games, just ripping off 5 wins and giving yourself a significant cushion to kind of level out more for the rest of the season. I was really, really optimistic about this team, because what I didn't know is if those results, that point tally, that win streak could continue. But what I did know was that we have a proof of concept here. This is something that can be successful on what I would call a shoestrings budget as well. So a lot of things to take away, but almost some things you kind of put on the shelf and say, this works, more holistically. Maybe we'll lose a couple of games because of this season, but I think we've got some great ideas here. So beginning starts out hot. Obviously you level out. You start to mix in more away games. You get put into cup competitions. We didn't really feature it, great in the U.S. Open Cup, I believe, just advancing one round when we beat Union Omaha here in St. Louis, and then bowing out in the League's Cup, which is a pretty abysmal showing, in my opinion. But you use that break that you get for League's Cup, getting bounced in the first round. And I think we kind of come back and finish the season, relatively okay. But really, for me, I broke it down on the podcast into 3 tiers. The first tier of games, that first third of the season, we were flying. There was not many teams that we couldn't give a game or beat. And then second and third kind of ended up more along the 50% win rate type area, where, we had a couple draws, but really this team plays by the seat of their pants. They are a winning team or they are a losing team. And these games have lots of goals and they're fun to watch, but there's not many draws. So we're not salvaging many points. And defense, I would say, is not what I'd say we're known for either, especially late on in games. But then you get to the MLS Cup playoffs, obviously, and everyone's buzzing. First in the Western Conference. Who would have thought? Look at all the haters now, and it's against your rival. And I hated it when we were, a couple days out from knowing who that rival would be. I said I do not want to play Sporting Kansas City in this playoffs. It's going to be obviously a very cool atmosphere, and wow, I mean that'll be our 5th game against them once we're done with the second game this season. But we had their number all year, especially at home, and to lose in that fashion, really just not look like yourself at all in those final 2 games. And Sporting, hats off to them, had a great series, and they definitely were the better team coming out of that. And I think they were just reaching their peak while we were kind of hitting a little bit more of a lull, I'd say, in our season. So a roller coaster, as you would expect for a campaign. But I'd say some of those highs were remarkable and really unexpected.
set the win total too, right? For an expansion side with 17 wins, beating LAFC. Nobody would have expected that going into this season. What players stood out for you and the fans as integral parts of the team from last year and going forward? Like who surprised you? Who cemented their status as, all right, they're going to be big for us next year?
I would say most of it probably ends up around the spine, which is where I'd say we spent most of our money when we were acquiring players, because otherwise there's a lot of good deals in how we built this team. But starting with the very, very far back, Roman Berkey. I am a goalie by trade. I definitely appreciate what goalkeepers can do. Him playing at that level for the entirety of last season and some of these saves he had no right making. He was the focal point of the team last year. I don't think we're nearly as successful without him. And I think he has endeared himself to St. Louis, and I think we will need similar level of play heading into this season as well, given how open we could be sometimes. The other two players I'll call out just a little more quickly is Edu Leuven in our central midfield. I think was a crucial cog in how we connected, defense to offense. He was a 10 sometimes, he was a 6 sometimes, he was an 8 sometimes. He was given so much flexibility to roam about the field and just go find the game. And I've not seen many passers of the ball in the MLS like him, with the vision that he has and the technical ability that he has. He is a gem to watch. And we only got to see half of it, but Joao Klaus would be my last one I'd give you guys, is we only got to see a half season from him. He missed so much of the season right in the very middle after getting off to a heck of a start. I would love to see what a full season of that Joao Klaus gives you if he give us 10 goals in the small sample size we got of him. I'm very excited to see what he can do in more of a full season. But those are obviously three main guys. You've got some support guys around that have, better seasons last year. A guy like Jared Stroud even outperformed. I mean, gets a big move to DC United now. Hopefully we'll log a lot of minutes for them. But there's a lot of unsung heroes as well. You have the emergence of young guys like Aziel Jackson. But it's going to be a big season. A lot of the same faces. Just a couple changes for 2024 for us on the fullback side and one in central midfield. But still a lot of young guys that I think have a lot to prove to really cement their spot in the 11.
Yeah, I think all great names. And I think Berkey leading the charge there, it's just it was phenomenal. And excited to see if he can replicate it, because he is probably arguably the best keeper in MLS if he plays that way. Because you've got pieces that move on, like a Petrovic. Like, that was solid. And Jordan knows good goalkeeping. He's a big Union fan, so Andre Blake. But, I mean, I'd put him in that echelon of goalkeepers. I mean, he is that good. So, so the next question that we had for you, and it just happened, I think you alluded to it before, Bradley Carnell got the extension that seemed to be well-deserved. Can you kind of speak to Bradley's success with the club? What is he doing differently with this club that maybe some of these other expansion sides can kind of take from?
Yeah. So, Coach Carnell gets the extension. I would love to have seen what they had him on as a current contract and what they gave him. I've heard it's maybe 2.5 years or at least 2 years on this extension. I think they went in and they invested in a guy that obviously is an unknown a little bit from a head coaching perspective, never having a full-time gig like this. But, someone that a lot of people respect, and he has a very, very well-known, or at least well-formalized way of playing. And to me, we very, very much committed when we signed him on, and Lutz as well as a sporting director, to playing by principles and not by players. And when I say that, I feel like we are a team that you should be able to plug guys in different areas. And you do look for, I'd say, a pretty specific player that, can run endlessly, that knows certain press triggers, and who has a really positive, intense attitude as well. And you look for guys that can be dangerous very quick. You may not have all the flair, all the patience, all the possession, but you need guys that can make moments matter and be lethal when asked to. So I think he made that work in season 1. He almost was coach of the year. I think Pat Noonan, who's also a St. Louis guy, grad, went to my high school at DeSmet. He wins. Obviously, Cincinnati had a great season. I'm still on the fence of what I would say, really warrants that award for the Sigi Schmid coach of the year, but he deserved to be there. And I think he deserves to come back. And I think he has earned himself a longer contract and a little bit more stability with that, because he's not going to get backed by these, $5-10 million wingers. If you ask me, I don't think that's the type of team that we're going to be. So his principles and the way that he coaches are going to have to really, really be the focal point behind driving us forward. And I think he's shown in year one that he's worth that investment for now.
So looking to this year, 2024, which players are you looking to improve off of last season? And are there any holes that need to be filled in this roster?
Yeah, I would say that I'm going to just go back to Joao Klaus. Need to see a full season from him. Can he stay healthy? Are we going to deal with this injury, and have prolonged absences like that? So I want to see a full season of health out of him, and obviously some level of the form that he was in prior. I would also say for us, at the center back position, Tim Parker had a great year last year. Can he maintain that level of play as well, getting into his upper ages now in terms of soccer years, I would say? And then his partner in crime, Nilsson, he was a guy that came in injured, didn't start, I think, any games until maybe in the summertime or later, and had a nagging injury. And we finally got to see him, and I don't think he was what we thought he was going to be, coming over from Germany, starting in the Bundesliga, logging tons of minutes, playing for his national team of Sweden, could have gone to World Cup had they qualified. And I just don't think he was the headline last year when you're sitting next to a guy like Tim Parker. And maybe that's just the way it'll be. But I want to see him play, up to the level I think we were expecting prior. And I think he has it in him as well. Otherwise, I would say, for me, I want to see Aziel Jackson take a step forward this year. He emerged as a huge, huge talent for us last year. I always had high hopes given what he had done in MLS Next Pro the season prior. But that jump is so different, going from MLS Next Pro to MLS, and the fact that he was able to put on a show against Union Omaha in the U.S. Open Cup and then kind of get more respect and more minutes following that. He carved out a role. I mean, he was in my best 11. Towards the end of the season, I couldn't imagine starting a game without him, considering his dribbling ability, his vision, his passing, his energy. His finishing, I think, could use some work, and that's where I want to see him get a little better this season, because I think he has the capacity to chip in with, double digits goal contributions, definitely. So I'm looking for him to have a season, and potentially he could have suitors as well. He's still young. We got him for nothing from Minnesota. So it would be a pure profit deal for this team, and I think they want to act as that springboard for him, as they just did for Joaquini, who I think I would mention is my only real gap heading into the year. He had 10 goals last season, carried the load while Klaus was gone, played really well together as well, but now he's off to FC Como. We are not going to replace, I would say, at least initially, but you do put some serious responsibility on the shoulders of some wingers, midfielders who haven't had to carry that load, because now you lost him, you lost Stroud as well, who chipped in with, I think, 6 goals last year. So there's 16 you have to replace. So I think it'll be a tryout for some of these guys to see, are they up to the task and putting on their goal scoring boots. But I'd say Joaquini is probably the biggest hole heading into the season. Is, do you have another guy behind a Dinarand or Klaus that is able to step up if there's injuries or need to change pace? So I think that's my only kind of worry heading in there, but I do feel like we will replace, maybe by committee, just in seeing what works in certain matchups.
And then we always like to ask this question. We asked it last year. I think last year you guys probably spoke more in hypothetical, just because you didn't really know what we're getting with this team. And I think you guys had at least boots on the ground and understanding what this team could have been, and playing a season before and then heading in to MLS, you got to see some of those pieces play on this side of the pond. But can you kind of speak to what would be a successful season for this team going forward in 2024?
Yeah. So like I said, we defined success under our latest recording. We did a season preview, and it was tough to think about, because I think last year the words we used were pushing for a playoff spot. Playoffs should be your goal, especially considering the expanded format, which was brand new last year. So it doesn't even say, a whole lot that you make the playoffs, but I think that would have been a big milestone for us. So obviously we hit that, and, top of the Western Conference was just icing on the cake. I cannot believe we still did that. But I think for me, there's 2 goals that I sort of picture this year. Is one, you've got to not only get back to the playoffs, but I think you've got to try to win a round in the playoffs. I think you've got to advance onto the next stage. And I think that's possible. I don't know if we're going to be in the 1 seed situation, maybe even 2 or 3 or 4 seed, considering some of the upgrades we've seen here in the West. and just now having a full season under our belt. But I do think we are a playoff team for sure. The odds say it. A lot of people are saying it, but I don't want this to get to their heads either. I think our goal should just be to incrementally improve. And I think winning a playoff series in round one would be something to notch under our belt. The other thing I would say, we talked this a little bit already too, is can we take or prioritize one of these tournaments a little more seriously and bring, our full strength 11 to this really go for it. I think if I had to guess, not knowing now what's going on with the US Open Cup, it sounds like MLS teams might play. Obviously, it's still up in the air. I, for one, think they definitely should. But I'd say if we're going to go for it on any of these, we've got to go for one of them and really go for it. So I think, I don't know if Leagues Cup is the one that we are going to really prioritize personally. If I had to guess, it could be a US Open Cup, but I don't think either way they'll rotate as much as it did in Leagues Cup last year, because that first game for us, everyone's excited. It's Columbus Crew. Of course, our group was MLS Cup winners and the Liga MX winners, looking back on it now in hindsight. So, we were all hyped up, and then it just kind of fell flat in his face. I was at the Club America game where we just got waxed. We were just on two different planets. So I think we've got to show a little bit that we can play against some of these top teams from outside the MLS. I think that's something that we're looking to prove this year, whether that's in CONCACAF Champions Cup or Leagues Cup. I just want to see us really prioritize one of this and try to make a run at it.
All right, Jake. Well, thanks for coming on. You want to tell everyone where they can follow the podcast and where to find it?
Absolutely. You can find us at Ball Watching on X, on Instagram, on Facebook. We do all of our podcasts on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts. We also do them on YouTube as well. So if you want to catch us there, I think it's also at Ball Watching STL. But that's where you can find us. Appreciate you guys having me on. Great, fun discussion. I can't believe we're almost here at the start of the 2024 campaign.
All right. Thanks to Jake for coming on and talking St. Louis. So let's give our report cards. He said win a playoff series for a successful season. I agree with that. You don't want it to go to your heads, right? We were top of the West. If we get second, this is a terrible season. You don't want to think that way. So you want to win a series. You want incremental increases. Report card, I have to say, this is an A+, right? I can't spin this any other way. You come into the league, you set expansion records, you finish top of the West. I don't care if the West was a little down last year. You finished top of the West. You had the 1 seed in the West. The only mark you would say is the playoffs were abysmal. But if I'm grading the season, it's an A+. Nobody expected this. We had them bottom of the West, and we were I think our successful season was don't win wooden spoon, and they come out and do the total opposite of it. So I think that is great. I have to go A+.
Yeah, A+, and I think we had conversations with their parents about promoting them to the next grade. Early.
Yeah.
So Jordan, they look like geniuses.
They got to CCC, so there you go.
Yeah. Jordan, they look like geniuses last year. I mean, Berkey's fantastic. I thought Klaus looked great when he was healthy. Giacchini, getting him from Orlando when he was basically just a supplemental piece they threw in every once in a while, and he just completely has spiraled out of control since he's played over in European soccer in that realm. And now that he's back and he played well for them, he was their co-leading scorer with Klaus. They made him look great. Löwen is a really good midfielder. Like you said, Aziel Jackson looked fantastic last year on the wing. I think he is proven to be somebody that can be part of this team going forward. And who knows, like you said, that he might warrant a huge sell-off fee. So again, like you said, I mean, Jordan, you scored 62 goals. That never happens for expansion clubs unless your name's LAFC. I don't even think they got to that, but it's amazing to me how good they were. They defended really well. A lot of that on Berkey, but they only let 45 goals through, which is unheard of too for expansion sides. I feel like expansion sides are just so exposed. Their spine is terrific, and that's what you want. And that's exactly what they did. They went out, got Tim Parker, brilliant signing. I mean, it is, Jordan, a club that if you're looking at how to do this in the next couple of clubs that do expansion, I think we're getting 3 more. The next 3 expansion clubs, Jordan, I think look at this club and say, that's the blueprint. Because Cincinnati had that learning curve. Nobody's going to get the money LAFC had to come into the league like that. Atlanta too. I think you look at Austin was awful. Again, I think you really do have to look at this team and go, that's what we should do. Build the spine. And I love what Jake said. They built the spine based on player attitude and play style and more of to like the discipline of the player, not so much to the skills and how many goals they can score. And it's a different attack that they have because they can't spend that much money. So A plus 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 for St. Louis, Jordan. I really enjoyed this team last year.
All right, on to Houston Dynamo. We were big proponents of them last year, I would say, or I was anyway at the start. Now I know our West predictions, I had them at 13th, but I said it could kind of go one of either way, right? With hiring of Ben Olsen, and I kind of had a belief in them as we kind of got more into the season, and they won an Open Cup. They were much improved from 2022. He was like the right hire at the right time. They reached the Western Conference Final. They lose to LAFC 2-0, but they won U.S. Open Cup. That's a huge accomplishment for a team that hadn't really won much since the 2006-2007 MLS Cups. So Houston really was able to kind of bounce back with this, and it's been just such a fun season if we're looking back at 2023 for them. I feel like I have to give them, if I'm grading them at all, I feel like I have to give them I'll give them an A-. I feel like winning a trophy is a huge accomplishment. So report card for 2023 for me, not an A+ because you know what? Screw it. I'm going to give them an A+. They reached the Western Conference Finals. They lose to LAFC. They win a cup after making a good hire of a coach. I feel like that's an A+. If I can give Miami an A+ for all their signings and stuff, I can give Houston an A+. That's where I'm going with them.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that one. I'm going to give them an A+, just because I think the way that we entered the season last year with the Dynamo, I think a lot of people expected them to finish about where we had them, Jordan, out of the playoffs, not really a threatening team. I was definitely more hesitant about the Ben Olsen signing, and I think you were pretty high on that. And as we have seen, it really is playing well in Houston, and he's had this team playing some really exciting soccer. I think they were probably one of the best teams as the season progressed. In you take a 10 chunk game or match out of the season, and they probably were one of the higher performing teams because they really did. I mean, they I think overperformed and outperformed their expectations. I think they really grew into the season as it went. They started to find their footing, and now, Jordan, I think that they're just a player or two away from really being a team that contends. They got all the way to the conference final and lost to LAFC, finished fourth in the conference, won the U.S. Open Cup. It's the first time they've added a trophy in 5 years. It's the fourth in their history, and they beat an Inter Miami team, Jordan, that was playing extremely good soccer with some of the best players in the world. And just for that reason alone, what I just listed, I think, is easily deserving of the A+ that we've given them. You're on mute now.
I pressed it, but it didn't register enough, I guess. I was going to say, don't ask me who they beat in their last trophy. I believe if it was 2018, that would have been when they beat the Union in the Open Cup back in 2018, where they beat the Union. So, they had two MLS Cups, 06, 07. They'd won the Western Conference a few times. They got to MLS Cup in 2011 and 2012. They lost to LA Galaxy, I believe, in both of those. And, so kind of bringing the winning ways back after a 5-year hiatus of any sort of trophies. So let's take a look at where we're going into 2024. So apparently Nelson Quijones, right, had an injury scare with his knee. So we don't know. Do we still not know what that is yet?
No, it was the last I had seen. It was being reported that he was it was a press conference, and it was I want to say it was Ben Olsen that gave the we're going to get further evaluations on the knee, but it does not look good at
Okay.
this moment.
So
And
that's still the last
it
update we
yeah,
have.
yeah. So they've been, and again, I don't know what it is about this league, man. Like, how can we not figure this stuff out?
And
Like,
Hector
half the time we don't
Herrera
even know they're missing.
is going to be injured starting the season as well. So those are two of their massive, attacking pieces. So we don't really know how that's going to be affecting the team. But Herrera was so good to start the just all season long with Houston last year. Big part of reason why they won a trophy. He's going to be 34 early. You say early next year? You mean this year, or like he's 33 throughout the whole rest of the season?
He'll be 34.
During the season,
Or he is 34. Yes, sorry, he
okay.
is
So he's
34 currently.
34.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, that's I'm getting close to that age. Still a young man. All right, he's still a young man. They have Arthur, of course. Still, they have Dorsey at right back. They have center backs Saviachenko, if I said that right. Probably not. He arrived in the summer window.
I'm gonna guess Viatchenko. I'm guessing the S is silent.
Oh, maybe, yeah. And then
Yeah.
Mikel over at the Brazilian center back as well. They bring they've signed two players, right? Thor Ulfarsson and Kieran Sargent, who's a homegrown
Yeah.
defender.
Yep.
And that's it right now. So they're one that's up in the air for me right now, and luckily we have a few weeks until we make our final prediction show, and we can kind of see if they make any changes. The window's open till April, but I think we both feel that they need to make some changes due to some injuries, that they need more depth if they're going to challenge. So this is where I kind of put it to you, Logan. If we're looking at a successful season for this club, they reached a conference final last year. They won a trophy last year. How can you possibly surpass that other than maybe reaching an MLS Cup final? What is it, like MLS Cup or bust for them this year? Because that seems a little absurd. So what's your thoughts on a successful season for 2024?
Yeah, I think the proper grade, I guess, would have probably been EE, like an E exceeds expectations. Back when you were in elementary school, I think that's what they used to grade you on. Satisfactory. Because I think they went so high, right, in played out of their minds and really did seem to put it all together and play some of the best football that we saw last year. I think it's okay to expect them to kind of regress a little bit, because I do think that there are some concerns with Hector Herrera about getting older. He's 33. Sorry, I made that up.
Okay, so still very young then.
Yes, very young.
That is still very. I'm turning 33 this year, and that
Yeah.
doesn't mean I'm old. I'm still a young guy, and I feel like anyway.
Yeah. So he's aging. He's got injury concerns. Canona's, he's got injury concerns, and they were two big attacking pieces last season. So I do worry that they won't start the season with him. And Houston's not extremely deep. They've got some good pieces, but I don't think they've got the depth to replace somebody like a Hector Herrera. And I don't know where they really go without him. I feel like he was the steam in the engine that made it go. And I think that it really is going to come down to how quickly can they get him back on the pitch, and is he going to have the same effect year in and year out now that he is, again, approaching that mid 35 level. I think once you get to 35, that's when you really start to see a dive in where your abilities and being able to play each game. And the more competitions that they have throughout the season, I think it's going to be more difficult for Houston. They defend really well. They're one of the best defenses in the league. I think that continues. I think that they do have the pieces in and around to make that defense just so incredibly strong like it was last season. But again, it's a wonder if some of these veteran pieces start to play more like veteran pieces that are kind of wear and tear, and they're kind of coming down off of a really good season. So, yeah, I mean, this is tough. Like, it really is like the hardest team I think we've covered so far, because it's like I think most fans' expectations are, well, let's take a step forward, and a step forward would mean reaching an MLS Cup final at least.
Right. Right. Like, how can you not
Yeah,
disappoint this year
it's
almost,
just
right?
tough.
Is you have to win it all almost, or win another piece of silverware.
Yeah.
But their injuries, we don't know if that's possible.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think they'll use him as much as. Yeah. Like, and it becomes interesting because then you get in the argument of what does this team actually want, and so many people are going to say MLS Cup, but a lot of people like to target Leagues Cup because it is against Mexican teams that are very good. And I think there are teams like at this level, at Houston's level, that think MLS Cup is nice and Supporter Shield is a nice thought, but like this is a competition we can play well in, and this is a competition we can win. So yeah, Jordan, I think a successful season would be to play as well as you did last year and keep that momentum going. And I know that's so broad and so not what we've kind of given as far as expectations, but I think with this team, it's so tough because you exceeded everything that people had for you last season, that I don't really know that you're much better than what you were last year. I just think that if you can stay par to the course and really play well this year, I think that's ultimately what you're asking for this Houston Dynamo team, and possibly getting into Leagues Cup final or MLS Cup final, and defending at least the idea of silverware in the season.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe a run in the Champions League, but or Champions Cup.
Yeah.
They have St. Louis, and then they have Columbus right afterwards because Columbus gets the bye. Starts in a later round. So having to go up against two of your own league teams in that it's gonna be tough. You have to go up against the winner of the West, and you have to go up against the winner of all MLS when you look at it that way. So that'd be tough. I was gonna say, hey, maybe enjoy not winning CCC, but getting a run in there. I don't know if that's possible. It's a pretty hard thing there. So what I'll say is they have to finish top 4 to be successful. You did it last year. Playoffs are a crapshoot, so I can't say you have to reach the final. But I would say you got to be top 4. Maybe you go win another trophy, Leagues Cup, CCC, Open Cup, Supporter Shield. Great. But I think really what you want to see is continued growth and like consistency. And getting top 4 again would be great consistency. So I think this is the first one I'm going to put in a weird way here. I'm going to put they have to be top 4 or top 6 and final of MLS Cup. Because if you drop out of the top 4, then you want to see improvement in the playoffs. Or you want to stay consistency in the top 4, right? And because getting into the top 4, I think, is the best thing if you want a possibility of making it further in the cup, right? Because you're going to go right into you're going to have the home field advantage in the best of 3 series. You're going to have home field advantage throughout. What kind of did them in is that probably going to LA, right? Maybe if they host that game against LAFC, they're in MLS Cup.
Yeah.
You're facing the third. LAFC was what, the 3rd seed. You're facing the 3rd seed then, which was just one step above you. And how many points were they separated by? My program is taking a while to load here. They were just 1 point behind LAFC. So if they won one more game, they're the 3rd place team. Maybe they're in MLS Cup and lose to the Crew, or maybe they beat the Crew, right? Like, you don't know what happens in that situation. So I would say you want to finish top 4. You still want to do that. Preferably you want to be top 3, but it's going to be tough. But So I'll say top 4 or top 6 in an MLS Cup final is kind of what I'm going with here. Because if you fall a little further back in the league, then you want to make that up in the cup.
Do you think that this team could that 2023 was more of the Austin year, I guess we'll call it, where you played so well that they could see a serious fall off?
I don't know about serious fall off. It depends on their injury situation and who they bring in and stuff. If they need to
Yeah.
replace people, but I don't know if I see them falling off as much as Austin. And I think part of that I would say is the Ben Olsen. He is a little bit more experienced than Wolf, right? So you feel like he should have a better handle on how to prepare for this stuff. But Ben Olsen at DC was like this. He would be, we're in the playoffs, we win a cup, we're out of the playoffs. We're in the playoffs the next year, we're out of the playoffs the following year. So I don't know. Plus they'll be playing CCC, right? So you're going to have to worry about depth there too when they're already injured. So I don't know. I can't envision them falling off as much, but I could see them falling out of top 4.
I think they benefit from being in a weak Western Conference, and we keep talking about this, but it seems to be getting weaker too, because we're going to get ready to get into some teams that I think Jordan will regress a little bit, have a learning curve, and possibly won't finish as well and as strong as they did last year. And I think that opens the door for teams like this in Dallas, right? I think Houston, I think Dallas. Sporting Kansas City is interesting because I think if they add a couple pieces, they can be, with how well they finished last season. I would not be shocked to see Sporting kind of have that rebound year. Um, I think contrary to what I have put on Twitter, if Austin did get a DP striker and they fix the defense, then they become formidable again. But it's so up for grabs, man. The Rapids are going to regain strength. RSL is always the little brother that gives you problems. Man, I just go up and down this list, right? Like San Jose, like there's a lot of intriguing teams. I think this is the intriguing conference based off the fact that I don't think people understand what's going to happen in this conference, because the 3 teams that we're getting ready to discuss, or sorry, the 2 teams that we're getting ready to discuss, the 3 teams that we've already discussed with St. Louis included, I think we'll get into some interesting storylines that I think make this a Wild West, an open West is what we'll call it, Jordan.
Yeah, I agree. So you said before that, did you say top 4 for them? Or
I
just
said pretty
playing the
much
Leagues Cup?
par
Like
for
deep
the
run?
course. Yeah, par for the course and making a deep run in one of the tournaments. Not tournaments, I guess competition, cups, whatever.
Yeah.
Because we still don't know if MLS is going to cave and play in U.S. Open. So
Oh, they should, right? I don't think that's I think U.S. Soccer denied their request for MLS Next Pro, so they have to play in it, right? They have to. I feel like
firm on them.
I feel like they wouldn't have. I think they're stuck with it this year at least.
I love it. Good.
All right, moving on to LAFC.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to LAFC. LAFC, of course, trying to go back to back, right? That was pretty much something I think they wanted to set out and try to accomplish, because not many teams have been doing back-to-back cups. It's been a while since, I guess, the Galaxy. I think 2012, 2013, somewhere around there, that they went back-to-back and won both cups there. It's been a bit. So they are probably thinking, hey, let's set the thing. We're supposed to be the team that everyone is looking to. We are LAFC, right? And they got close. They got really close. They got back to the final, which I don't think I had expected. I think it's something that most people were kind of dreading. When you look at the usual like MLS followers were like, oh, please don't let them win again, right? Because we do want to see other teams win stuff. That's more fun if you're like a neutral and your team's not in it. If you're an LAFC fan, of course, it is way more fun to see your team go and win as many things as possible. So it depends on how you want to rank this. They are definitely looking at this as, we wanted to win as many trophies as possible. We wanted to go back to back. But Logan, they lost 3 trophies this year. They got to the final of CCC, got to the final of Campeones Cup, where it's like the winner of Liga MX and the winner of MLS, and they play a one-off game. And so if you want to count that as a final, it's a final. They lost that. And then they end up losing MLS Cup final. So I guess the way you want to, if how you want to rank this, right? Because I think it's hard to say that's a bad thing. That means you got to 3 finals, you did your best, right? You had a chance to win trophies. I would kill to be in 3 finals. You have some people that look at that and say, "Oh, they're the only MLS team to lose like 3 finals in a season," and it's like, shut up.
Your team would never.
But I would think LAFC fans, I think some of them are a little spoiled. Where like, we've been winning trophies. Do they look at that differently? Do they look at it and say, we should have won one of these? So I would put this as an A-. I think you reach these finals. Yes, you lost them, right? But you got back to MLS Cup final. So that's a good season. You had a chance to win back-to-back MLS Cups. That's a really good shot. And I think anybody would love to do that. If the Union had gotten back to MLS Cup again this year, I would have loved that after them losing to LAFC. You'd think, okay, maybe we have a shot of winning this one. And this time, the Union would have hosted, right? 55, 52. Yeah, Union would have hosted this year. And that's what you were, pushing for if you're a Union fan. Home final. And we'd be able to put that to rest of, okay, would they have won at home in 2022? So I think the most opportunities you're getting to finals is good. The reason it's not a plus is because they didn't win any. But A- after kind of a tough season where we thought that they were, we kind of all thought they were going to be first in the West again. They came out very slow to the gate, and it took a while for them to get back up to those games in hand. And each time we were like, oh, they got the games in hand. They'll beat St. Louis to it, but they didn't. But they did get top 3. And that proved crucial when you host a Western Conference final, because you finished right above Houston Dynamo, who, were the surprise team of the season. So I have to go A- for them.
Yeah. I think all that what you talked about was good. I think to reach 3 finals against really good teams in the Mexican League, and then a really good Columbus Crew team that I think was the best team that we've seen in a long time down a 10 to 15 game stretch. I think that's fair. I think an A- because, Jordan, let me read this off to you. This was an end of an era. And what I mean by that is Gio Chiellini retired. Danny Cristomo, Julian Gaines, Eldon Jakupovic, Tony Leon, Daniil Maldonado, John McCarthy, Diego Rosales, Christian Torres, Mohamed Traore, Kellen Acosta, Maxime Crepeau, Diego Palacios, Carlos Vela, Mario Gonzalez, Stipe Buke, Felipe Krestev, some of their DP signings from last season. One of their best players to ever play with them, and Carlos Vela. Chiellini is the reason why they won MLS Cup last season, or the season prior. Like, that was an end of an era. Kellen Acosta was a fantastic signing, and he's still a free agent, which is wild to me. But Maxime Crepeau, one of the best goalkeepers in this league in the last 5 to 10 years. Book it. That was an end of an era. And to go out like that, Jordan, where you gave those guys 3 opportunities to bring home silverware, and on an international stage in 2 of those, I think you did a good job. And Steve Cherundolo, man, like, there's not many coaches out there, Jordan, that can say, I won MLS Cup my first year. And then in my second year, I made 3 finals in 3 huge competitions and nearly pulled out all of them. Like, like I would say, they might have pulled out one of them if they hadn't played in 3 finals. Just saying. Like, I do feel like playing that many matches and playing that many high intensity level games and getting to MLS Cup final, like the fact they even got to MLS Cup final and made pretty easy work of it, Jordan, is just, it's a testament to what this team is. I'm really excited about the page that they're turning over and heading into in 2024. And I think that you can't give this team anything less than an A minus, because I really do think that we're set up now, Jordan, where they are the Seattle of MLS. They are constantly there.
Yeah, I mean they are
LAFC.
they are LAFC. As the show said, right? We are LAFC. Yeah, they are definitely one of the premier clubs in the Western Conference for sure, and in the league. And if you're fighting for finals and you're, they had reached a CCC final before, didn't they? When they or was that Club World Cup? Which one did? No, they reached the
they
CCC
hit. They hit
during
CCL.
COVID year, right? And then
Yes,
they
CCL
lost.
right now.
Yeah, okay.
Because we thought they were the best chance, and then Seattle won it the next year.
Yeah, Seattle won it like the next year, and they lost to Tigres, I think, who
Yes.
then got to the Club World Cup final, or
Correct.
well in that. Okay, so I was confusing the two, but no, yeah, only 4 points off the top of the West after their slow, what we would call slow season for them, and they still only finished 2 wins less than St. Louis. It really, if they had won 2 more games, they finished 3 wins less than St. Louis. But my point is, if they had won 2 more games, they would have taken over first place.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and you would think, we did our interview with St. Louis already. Well, we've talked about it there. But if St. Louis is going to drop out of the top 4, then you have a good chance of, you're looking at LAFC and Seattle kind of reclaiming the top. And that moves me to 2024, which they haven't really made that many signings, right? They are still working on Carlos Vela. Apparently they're still trying to get Vela signed, I believe. But they lost a lot of players. They haven't done much. They are teasing the 3 signings. We didn't get them yet, though, did we?
Yeah, we got them. Yeah.
Oh, we got all 3?
Okay. Yeah, it's Hugo Lloris.
Oh, right.
Well, no,
very cheap.
sorry, he was already. Yeah. No, it's I think it was Omar Campos, Tomas Angel, and David Martinez. All young players, all very good players.
Oh, here they are. I had to scroll down. Okay.
Yeah. They are like the next batch of the coming, right? Like, they're coming. And yeah, I'm really excited. Out of all of them, though, Jordan, I watched a lot of highlights on David Martinez, and he has the abilities, and he's young, but he has the abilities, I think, skillfully to really be one of the better players in this league. I think he's 20, I believe, and man, he was impressive watching him play.
Yeah, the big question becomes of, does Bowanga stay? He wants to force his way out, right? If they can re-sign Vela. And then the real question is Lloris with Crépeau, right? Because they had to ship out Crépeau because they wanted to bring in Lloris, and Lloris is like making less money, I think, than Crépeau. I don't know. He's making like $350K. But Lloris has really fallen off. I think most people would agree with that. He's not the guy he once was. So is it a downgrade? I think it's a downgrade, and we'll see how it plays out throughout the season. But can they, they won MLS Cup with John McCarthy after Crépeau's injury. So it's not like that's a big glaring hole for them, right? Lloris will probably get the job done enough to win a trophy if they need him to. I'm looking at successful season. This is one where I'm not talking about placement at all. They just have to win silverware this year. They got to the 3 finals. They didn't win any. They won some in 2022. I think they would take an Open Cup, a CCC, a Leagues Cup, Supporter Shield, which they can really be in the running for. Does the squad look deep enough for that right now? Probably not. They have to really make some big changes, but I do have faith that LAFC will do those changes throughout the course of the year, and they'll have a good shot at it. So I think they have to win something.
Eduard Atuesta is back too. One of the best defensive midfielders, but also plays well in the attack. And he left, I think, for Palermo and didn't work out well. David Martinez is 18. Yeah. I'm just like randomly remembering people's ages now. Yeah. So looking at this team though, Jordan, a successful season, like you said, is finally winning silverware in one of those competitions. That being said, do I think they do? I don't, and I'm not trying to give too much away from our season prediction show. But I think there's a lot of concern for me because of how young the roster is going to turn over to be. I still think they've got some good pieces defensively, obviously. In Murillo and Long, you also have Hollingshead, who's one of the best defenders in this league. Campos, who's really exciting, coming over from Santos Lagunas. 20-year-old Mexican international left back who's been really good. So I think they've got some really great defensive pieces. It's the attacking front. And, in this league, you've got to score a lot of goals. I don't think really we've ever seen a team, Jordan, win MLS Cup, at least recently in today's era, scoring under 50-some goals. Right? So I think you look at
I would love to know the actual math on that. I would love to
look up the so who was it? It was Columbus.
Go back and look.
Right. So Columbus had easily over 50, right? Last season they had
Columbus had 67.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well, then LAFC would have been the year prior, and they beat the.
They had
was
66.
That? Yeah, 66.
Let's see. 2021 was
NYCFC.
Yes, NYCFC, and they had 56. You said lower than what?
50.
50? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
2020 was
would have been
Columbus,
a weird year,
right?
Yeah.
36.
Shortened
season, though. Shortened season. Yeah. Nobody scored 50 in the East that year. 2019. Oh, this will test my knowledge. 2019. Oh, Seattle won that one, right?
Yeah, 52.
52. So that's the closest so far.
Yeah. This is panning out well for Logan. Atlanta, that had to be, that was their 70-goal season, the season prior, 2018.
2018 when they won it, right? Yeah.
Yep.
70 goals. 2017 was
Toronto.
Crap. Was it Toronto? Yes. They had 74. 2016, that was Seattle.
2016 was Seattle.
44 in a full season.
So that's where it falls off.
They had a goal differential for they came up 43 or 44.
Yeah. All right. So 2016 was the last time somebody.
That's almost 10 years. That's 8 years.
Yeah. Right. So again, I guess that bodes well for teams that are going to score over 50. Do I think they can do it? I think Denny Bwanga is the key to that if he sticks around. I don't know if he makes it through the summer. I really doubt that he does because I think this team will struggle at first because they've got so many young pieces in the attacking front, especially if Vela does not return. It sounds like Vela is going to return. It's just like when and in what shape will he be in? And Jordan, he only added 9 goals last season. He did have 7 assists, but Carlos Vela is no longer. He plays 34 matches, like he played all 34, but he was more of a sub. Like he played 23. He started 23. He did have quite a few minutes. So like there were games though that he had to take breaks with the amount of competitions. I don't. It all really depends on those two players, and I'm not sure that happens again either for Bwanga or Carlos Vela. Like I feel like Bawanga exceeded expectations. I think his expected goals was 6 goals over. Like he was way above what he was expected to get. Um, so I don't know. I just don't think that works. I think this might be the
So,
season where LAFC is not as strong as they were.
so what do you have them as for successful season?
Successful season. I mean, it's hard not to say win a cup, right?
Okay.
I just don't think they can do it. That was my long-winded
Okay.
rant of I just don't think this team's built
Yeah,
quite
so
yet.
maybe this
Yeah.
episode won't be as short then. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Well, we got Seattle. Seattle, there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So let's move on to Seattle, right? I think we've talked
Yeah.
LAFC enough. So Seattle, the team I'm repping right now, jersey wise, they what was their biggest offseason acquisition? Their new crest? Is that what we're going with? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, 100%. Looking at this, yes, Jordan, that is correct. No, actually, no, never mind. I forgot Pedro de la Vega's there. That's exciting.
Yes, Roldan only played 16 matches due to injury. Nico Ladero left. He's part of Orlando's team now. And yeah, they had a little bit of an aging roster, so now they have to kind of reset. Rui Diaz only had 18 matches played, 5 goals. You need more than that. The team only scored 41 goals all season long. They still finished in the top 2 of the West. Only gave up 32 goals. That's part of the reason why. And they needed a new number 10, right? And they went out and I believe they got that, right? They had a well, I mean, I guess technically he's a winger, right? But I think he's wearing
Yes.
the 10, so he's
Yeah.
technically the new number 10. Young designated player spot, Pedro de la Vega, Argentine player, youth international for Argentina, 22 years old. He's through contract until 2027 with an option for 2028. 17 goals, 14 assists, and 127 appearances. You're hoping for more than that, definitely. But I think, I don't know, I think he can translate here. This is the type of signing I think that you look at and you say, this can be pretty good. They also bring in Danny Muzovsky, 28 years old, of course. He's going to be up top along with Jordan Morris and Rui Diaz. Morris sometimes will be on the wing as well for you. So see how that goes. Yeah. So that was a free agent signing for Muzovsky, coming from RSL and LAFC and his history. But yeah, so that's what they've done for 2024. So if we go back to 2023, where they had some struggles, right? Still finished second in the West. Who'd they get bounced out by the playoffs with?
Oh, gosh, that's going to test my knowledge. Was it Houston? No. Was it Houston?
No, because Houston knocked out RSL and then I think lost to
LAFC knocked them out.
LAFC knocked them out. That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
So I can't remember who met up with them.
That's who you're going to have to beat out. So far, both of those rosters are at a point where you're like, I think the West hasn't made as many moves as the East has, I feel like. So you're looking at the West and you're thinking there's lots of maneuverability here on that. But last year they get bounced out by LAFC, who goes on to reach the final. They finished second in the West. I don't know. I would say maybe a just straight A or A minus. Let's go A minus for Seattle. Because I feel like after having all those injuries, when you're talking about Roldan being out for that long, Rui Diaz being out and not contributing, and they still finished second in the West, I feel like that's pretty darn good. Mostly for their defense there, but yeah, I think I'm going to give A minus.
Yeah, I think Rusnak's acclimated. JP is so good. He's one of my favorite players to watch. I love watching Seattle though. Anytime I get to watch Seattle, I'm so excited. And congratulations, Seattle got a U.S. men's national team game for the World Cup. But
and not to like give up my kit episode here, but I'll watch them a lot in these kits. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. Yes. But yeah, Jordan, I think you're right. A minus, because they really did. They performed really well. I feel like Seattle got back on track. Yes, they have an aging roster, but I think that they do enough. Whereas, like, I think Portland adds things as a band aid. I think LA Galaxy definitely add things as a band aid. SKC got that way too, where it just seems like they were trying to find the best next fit or fix, not the fit. And whereas Seattle, I think Schmetzer has that so under control and so under lock. And like, I was listening to their press conference after the season, and he was talking with the GM. I forget the guy's name, but off the top of my head, but they were talking about their goal scoring production and what that might mean going forward. And they were pretty honest about it, where they said the defense is so key. And Stephen Fry, there's probably not anybody that's been better than him in this league. And he's been such a staple. I think he's been here for like over 10 years or something crazy like that now, Jordan. He's like close to 15, but it's just nuts. Like this team is so consistent. They hardly ever have that year where you're like, oh, that was so disappointing in them. Like last year, it just felt like they were that team again. They were ready to challenge. They had a healthy Jordan Morris. That really helps. I think now's the key part of Jordan Morris is healthy. Getting Christian Roldan back and healthy will help tremendously this team. Getting rid of Nico Ladero, even though he's a club legend, I think that was key. He's just an aging piece in that cog. And I think getting him out of the system, it allows Albert Rusnak to open up. It's going to allow De La Vega to get loose on the wing. It's going to allow Christian Roldan, Alex Roldan, and them to get up into that attacking third like they like to get up into. So I don't know. I really love this team. I think an A minus is pretty damn accurate as to what this season was for them, because I think they had a couple things that they would have liked to have accomplished, and I think scoring goals was definitely one of them. And if they scored more, they were going to be one of the top teams in this league, but they just didn't.
All right, so we kind of talked about their signings, and like you said, some of these players are more acclimated now. What's a successful season for 2024? Because I feel like for me, it's this is a club that I would think you want to say again, like this has to be silverware. This is a team that has constantly won silverware. As we get to the top of these tables, I feel like that's where I kind of have to go with is like, hey, you got to win something, right? Yeah, you just won Champions League, 2 years ago? You won MLS Cup a few times. You go out there and challenge for Supporter Shield, or you used to win Open Cups all the time when you first entered the league. You have to go out there and win something, I think, for Seattle. I guess the other option would be like, yeah, win the West, right? Like, I feel like that's something, too, you could say. So I'll say that. Win a trophy, or at least win the West.
I think a successful team or a successful season for this team is to be the Kings of the West again. Finish number one. I think that the Western Conference is open, and I think Seattle has the roster to do it. They need more consistency in the attack. Adding Musovski is a really nice piece. I think adding him in as a depth piece to score, because that's what he's done in this league. He scores really well. He's just a guy that's going to find you 8 to 10 goals. And I think that's something they were missing, was that in behind Jordan Morris, because Rui Diaz was not contributing. If Rui Diaz does his normal 8 to 10, 12, whatever it might be, they've got 50 some odd goals, and there they are in that sweet spot, right? So yeah, I think that this team, honestly, Jordan, I say a successful season is either winning the West in first and making a deep run, or at least finishing in the top 3 and winning MLS Cup. Because I think this is it. Like, I think there's a good chance that some of these players move on after this season. So, yeah, I think I really like what Seattle's done. I really enjoy listening to Schmetzer, because he's so honest. Like, he's so unbelievably honest, and that's what I love about Brian. So, I'll be rooting from afar this year for Seattle games, and I'll definitely be tuning in for more, because I think that this team's got quite a bit of firepower left, I think, but this might be the last time we get to see like a Jordan Morris with all these other guys.
So I wrote down, you said be the Kings of the West and a deep run, or what was the other option for you?
Finish top 3 and win MLS Cup.
Okay. All righty. Well, that is our show, right? So, of course, if you fell asleep during this episode and you're like, why didn't they talk St. Louis? That was at the beginning of the show when we had our guests on. So you just rewind, wake up, and go back and listen to the top of the show where we talked St. Louis. Really looking forward to this. We got one more preview left, and that's the top 5 of the East. And that'll be coming next week. And then we have our prediction show. And then we have our kit rankings for 2024. And we've been putting out a bunch of content this week. We had 2 reviews last week and a interview with 2 Baltimore City FC players that I shared on the YouTube and the podcast feed, and that was received very well. So thank you all for listening to that. I know not everybody is around my neck of the woods, but I do think you can let me know too if you listen to it and think it's worthy or not. But I do think some of that stuff is interesting when you're looking at like 5th, 6th tier of U.S. soccer and what a week. One of the questions I asked was kind of like, what's your week leading up to that? Because they're not professionals, so it's a whole different life. I think that's some of the stuff that really gripped people about like Wrexham and some of those lower tiers over in England is, like some of them can be plumbers, or when they follow the Wrexham women team, and some of them are like correctional officers, and then also playing soccer on the weekends for them. So, I'm hoping to get to a game sometime soon when the season starts and kind of maybe do a blog with that. There's talk of maybe me doing some commentary for the team. We'll find out. But yeah, so I'm really excited to just be a part of lower league soccer. Make sure you guys support your lower teams as well as your major league soccer teams, because as you saw in the offseason, MLS soccer teams don't care about the lower leagues or the traditions of U.S. soccer with the U.S. Open Cup. So make sure that you find a way to support those tiers of U.S. soccer as well. Anything else, Logan, before we wrap it up?
No, I think I will second that motion to pay attention to your local soccer, because a lot of these players that we've grown to love grew up watching the San Diego Loyal or the blinding lights of the bright lights over in Vegas, whatever they're called. That doesn't help. But Charleston Battery, Jordan, like, it was part of the reason why I liked watching soccer was because I used to watch some of their games. We used to go to some of their games over at Patriots Point over in Charleston, South Carolina, and the Battery were always good. And they were just a lot of fun to watch in USL. And then I came down here, and Orlando City was still USL and making their transition into an MLS side. And they were MLS side when I lived in Orlando. And, they come from, their roots are deep within the USL hierarchy, and same thing with Cincinnati. They've got all these great ties where a lot of these teams came from, Jordan, and a lot of these players grew up in towns that they've supported their local soccer clubs, and that's why they're where they are today, is because of those. So yeah, I'm all for it. I'm excited to get more of that kind of content on this feed. I know you're going to be doing some on the other feed, but I know we've got some plans to reach into our fun Sunday episodes that we're going to be recording, to really entice people for other reasons just beyond talking the actual games themselves, talking U.S. men's national team, USL, NISA, if it's still around, MLS Next Pro. Like, let's cover it all. We'll cover it all. We'll talk to people inside the clubs that have jobs that you're like, wow, that's weird. Like, wow, I didn't even think about having on the marketing director for so-and-so.
We'll probably also do fun stuff like ranking the crests of MLS clubs or just U.S. soccer clubs. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's tons of fun stuff that we got planned throughout the course of the season that'll be more than just these episodes that are our usual episodes and all that. So trying to bring a whole bunch of great content forward for everyone. Talking about the stuff we love, U.S. soccer. All right. Well, that wraps us up. At Stateside Show on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all that good stuff. Logan's putting a lot of work in with the TikTok stuff, so make sure you check us out there. Like and subscribe to us here on YouTube. Comment in the notes below. If you're listening audibly on the Apple Podcasts and Spotify, you can rate and review us there. That helps other people find the show. So make sure you do that. We're very appreciative of reviews and ratings. Thank you all for watching and listening. We will catch you next time when we cover the top 5 of the East, preview them, and get closer and closer to the start of the 2024 MLS season.